Coming up on today's wrestling news, a major update on Seth Rollins' stable.
Cope, AEW's Cope that is, has disclosed when he might retire from wrestling.
Jeff Jarrett shoots on MJF.
And as Dakota Kai expressed her frustrations with WWE.
I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Michael Sidgwick.
And this is the news. So let's talk all about the hottest stable in wrestling right now. I'm talking about the new Dangerous Alliance, whatever you want to call them. What were they called? The Trifecta of Terror?
Yes.
By Adam Pearce. I'm talking, of course, of Seth Rollins, Bron Breakker, and Paul Heyman, that new stable on Monday Night Raw, running things, killing Sami Zayn, that sort of thing. Loads of talk about this and loads of speculation with regards to them going forward. And Fightful have come through with a great report on this. First of all, talking about how they kind of want to be perceived, because as I mentioned, they've been compared to the Dangerous Alliance, they've been compared to Evolution. Is that what they want to be compared to? Not really, according to Fightful. They're not intended to draw comparisons to anyone. I know people have suggested, or maybe there's going to be a fourth member, more on that in a second. But afterwards, after this week's Raw, they have basically reached out to Fightful and said, a source at least, has said that they don't really want to be compared to any other stables. They want future stables to be compared to them. They want to be their own thing, which is kind of understandable, but it is also understandable that people will draw comparisons between legendary stables of the past. But with regards to a new member, there's been a load of names thrown around for a potential fourth member. Becky Lynch has been suggested. I've seen online calls for Ethan Page, Austin Theory. Personally, if you're going to pick a young upstart, I'd like someone like Carmelo Hayes, for example, to be added to the group. But Fightful doing some great reporting yet again have found out that right now there is no plans to add a fourth member, which in my opinion for the time being I think is the right call. But what do you make of this whole new Dangerous Alliance, whatever they are?
Well, we go more in depth on this on the Raw review, and I'll to plug straight away. But on said review, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts from, I couldn't decide whether some genuinely deliberate comparisons were being drawn between this new group or this new alliance and the Bloodline, or whether WWE was potentially running out of ideas and almost did it involuntarily because that's just the sort of thing they do.
Copying their own homework, you said.
Yeah, a little bit. So Bron Breakker reveals himself by wearing a black hoodie. Obviously, we'd seen, Solo Sikoa do that, and Jimmy Uso when he turned heel. And there was a segment in which Sami Zayn was talking to Bron Breakker and said that if he doesn't stop looking at me like that, I'm going to smash his face in, which is something that Jey Uso had said to Jacob Fatu a matter of months ago. So it seems to me, giving that and Sean Ross Sapp's report, it's always Sean Ross Sapp, more often than not anyway, is that maybe they are potentially drawing deliberate parallels between this group and the Bloodline, with the idea being that Seth Rollins is becoming the hypocrite that will one day fight Sami Zayn in that feud. It seems like a strange move to not add any new stables yet, purely because, quite frankly, it's easy. This sort of stuff feeds narratives. You can already imagine a Survivor Series elimination tag featuring this new alliance and a babyface squadron and all the rest of it. You can't tell me that there's not being the talk within WWE of we can make Braun the new Batista. The guy's wearing a suit.
Yeah.
He's got sort of a similar sort of physique and explosive power game. He's clearly going to be the babyface coming out of it. The thing about not wanting to draw comparisons to another stable is tough titties.
Yes.
There's very little you can do with that format and that dynamic. There's always going to be comparisons drawn, but it's just a strange one for it to be reported when, as I said, this seems like a vehicle for Seth Rollins to be portrayed as a hypocrite who is becoming everything he hates. In order for that, and in order for that character to work, you have to almost intentionally draw comparisons to Seth and Roman Reigns, and by extension the Bloodline. So, strange one for me, but we'll see how it unfolds. It's catching people out already, I guess. It is generating and sparking interest. So, whatever the plans are, they seem to be capturing the imagination of WWE fans at least.
Yeah, and I think this sort of relates to how you generally feel about the Bloodline too, in terms of I love the Bloodline, and I was fascinated by the developments that we saw on Mania and the Raw after WrestleMania, and then when they killed Sami Zayn, which obviously would draw more comparisons to the Bloodline, of course, on this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. I'm really intrigued by this. I also, to a certain extent, or at least get the idea of getting that out there, that they're not immediately adding new members to the group, because that's what kills groups, doesn't it? It's just this, we'll just add a new member to refresh it. I sense for the time being it's going to stay as a trio, although obviously two of them are actually the only ones wrestling in there, perhaps with an eye of maybe some sort of huge tag team match with Seth and Braun versus maybe CM Punk and Roman Reigns
Yeah.
at, let's say, SummerSlam or something down the line, and maybe that's when you add this extra, young new member to the group. But for me, yeah, it's one of those things. There's a lot of talk about people fighting gorillas online, and I saw a comparison where he said, all right, well, let's forget about 100 people fighting a gorilla. What about all the members of the NWO, which just goes to show sometimes groups can get far too big.
Indeed.
So 3's fine for now, but that intrigue and that excitement around this group isn't going to go away anytime soon. And the moment it does maybe start to dip, that's when you add another member for me. And you're spoilt for choice in terms of if you want to, like I said, add Becky Lynch to a really intriguing dynamic to that group, or cherry pick someone, as obviously Evolution did, even though they don't want to draw comparisons to Evolution, of like, right, we've got Seth, he's the Triple H, we've got the Batista, obviously, as you said, in Braun Breaker, but we need the young up-and-comer that we're going to mould. Who's our new Randy Orton? For me, yeah, it's got to be someone like a Mello or someone maybe even brought up from NXT as like, this is our guy. Maybe Ricky Saints, who knows? But plenty of time to work that one out. But yeah, people are all talking about this new stable. I want to know what their name is. They haven't got a name yet. I need a name. I don't want to just call it Seth Rollins' stable.
In the comments.
Yeah.
Pitch some names. If it is going to be Evolution, contrary to that first news story, they will need a Ric Flair, ergo a pretty old wrestler who has seen better days in the past. On the subject of which, Cope has spoken with the First Up podcast to basically reveal when, in fact, he plans to retire, and that is sooner rather than later. He believes he is working as we speak, as we record, on his last deal, which he says has about 2 years left to run in All Elite Wrestling, after which he says he is going to retire. He can hopefully limp away relatively pain-free and do yoga for the rest of his days. Elaborating on his physical state, he said that he could never work an old schedule, but quite frankly, at the moment, that schedule has been consigned to the past. He says that the recovery from working matches at his age and the amount of bumps he's put on his card, it takes him a week often to recover, and he's nearer the end than the beginning. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of Cope nor this comeback run. I think somewhere he's got it in his head that he is portraying Jack Reacher when that was never the appeal of the original Cope character, who was quite his time in his prime, like a really great defensive counter cerebral wrestler. I don't know where this hard man delusion has come from. I don't welcome it. But the happier news, if you're Cope or you're a fan of Cope, is that if you look and not really sort of like really cryptic clues right now, they are setting up a reunion with Christian Cage, a potential match with FTR, and I think the idea of Christian Cage and how funny he is, like in a really darkly cruel way, might in fact sort of bring some more levity back out of Cope, a missing part of his act, which was a huge part of it, that sort of wicked wit for a long time. So maybe there's potentially good news and a storybook ending, and the old Cope can in fact return.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's obviously great for him to be able to have a retirement run in terms of the way that his career previously was just taken away from him in an instant. Yeah, I'm kind of with you in terms of where we are at with the current Cope character. It needs some sort of change. The grit, not a thing that I particularly enjoy in my wrestling, to be perfectly honest, but...
You like Daft Bollocks?
Yes, indeed, and that's what I want from him and Christian.
They were great at it.
If you've got 2 years left, I'm sure there's lots he wants to achieve. I'm sure there's potential championships still to win. But hey, let's have a bit of fun with this.
Why not?
And who better than Christian Cage, who talks about people's
I'm
dead
all about
dads.
fun.
So there's that option, and I think that's the direction you're going, as you said, because. The reunion of them two, and particularly the way that FTR took him out, it just makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It will be a challenge. Like, how do you turn, of all wrestlers operating right now, Christian Cage heel? You can't. It would be such a pivot, such a 180 in terms of like how. I mean, it's hilarious at the best of times. Like, how do you get a character that dark, that sinister, that outright nasty to turn babyface? Maybe they could do a sort of similar riff on what DX did in 2006. Bear with me, I know that was horrendous. Where, Triple H would say something like really sort of like foul-mouthed or like sexual, and because, he'd found God and all the rest of it, Shawn Michaels was like, you can't say that. What if Christian Cage is like, your father, and Cope's like, come on, man, we've been through this, it's not very nice, blah, blah, blah. We're trying to be good.
That's a really good idea. I have a slightly stupider idea, and that is Christian Cage in storyline aids Adam Copeland with his recovery from the horrific FTR attack. And when Cope finally returns, he reappears, still suffering from the after effects of what they did to him, but not with a neck brace, with a cartoonishly large collar neck brace combo, turtleneck brace around his neck to signify these two back on the same page, basically. But
I like it.
yeah, and also just generally, I think 53. I think it would be when he retires.
Yeah, time to go.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And I credit to Copeland to realise there's not many wrestlers out there. There's a few at the moment, but there's not many wrestlers out there that are like, I think that's what we call it. A lot of them just sort of keep going.
A lot of them say they're going to call it and don't call it though at the same time. And he says last appearance in AEW, he'll do something with the Fed. He will
one more go around with the Fed. Yeah, come on.
I mean, he hasn't said that, but I'm personally, my opinion is that he will.
Yeah. Sticking with AEW and Jeff Jarrett, who just, of course, returned on Collision following an extended absence after a bit of a weird feud with MJF, and he's had his words with regards to MJF on his My World podcast, one of the best podcasts out there. You know, that's not ours, obviously. Yeah. And Jeff said, MJF, ever since he got involved in anything that had to do with myself, it's turned to absolute shit. He always leaves everyone worse than when he started being associated on any level. I think he's toxic. I think he's selfish. I think he's got a boatload of talent, but I don't think he was good for my career on any level. Jeff also admits elements of what happened with the MJF feud and his career recently has kind of been his fault. I think he got me off on a wrong track on a couple of different avenues. We'll see where this thing goes, but listening to the wrong people is kind of the understatement of my 2025 AEW career. It's not public business, but there's a lot took place. We'll see how it develops. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, and the MJF situation was a massive, massive, massive mistake on so many levels. That goes without saying. We will see. Probably a bit of a blending of reality and kayfabe here.
Unquestionably.
But no doubt that whatever that was with MJF did not help Jeff Jarrett's big final year within AEW.
No, it didn't, and I would like to know the real story. I suspect there might be an element of truth here, but on the same podcast, if you watched Collision, they are building a rift between Jeff Jarrett and Sanjay Dutt. He also spoke about Dutt on this podcast in very kayfabe terms. So I think that a chance.
Jay Lethal want to take control of the group as well?
God, I don't know. I forgot they existed as a collective. And then they said something to the effect on Collision of like, things haven't been going right for us lately. And I was like, it's not an understatement. I forgot you existed. A fun mid-card heel actor. A rare highlight, in fact, in 2023, which wasn't AEW's best year. So I shouldn't be too trivial about that sort of thing.
On the Briscoe farm.
Oh my God. That match at Double or Nothing was such great overbooked bollocks. There was FTR versus Jarrett and Lethal, Double or Nothing 2023. I loved that match. It was such an overbooked, I knew what it was and it had loads and loads of fun with it. Yeah, this might have been more easy to take seriously had Jarrett not talked about Sanjay Dutt in fictional storyline terms on the same podcast, but I mean, something's happened there.
Yeah.
Something's happened. I don't know if Tony Khan has made the call to scrap it. It was very suddenly abandoned. I don't know if one of the wrestlers has gotten in their ear or anything like that. But Jarrett, MJF played MJF and he wanted to rediscover himself, and he was obviously going to go over the line, to cross the line. That's what his character does.
The first thing we saw when we saw those two feuding or starting to get into it with each other, the first thing we said was, he's going to say stuff about Karen Jarrett, isn't he?
He's going to say stuff about, Jeff's struggles with, substance abuse and all the rest of it, which he's been very open with. And, Jeff Jarrett, more than most, is a carny. He's a wrestling promoter. He's a wrestling booker. He's an old school guy. He knows personal issues draw money. I think he more than most knows that is true. If you know, you know. What was weird about that whole thing, just as a little tangent, is MJF was playing MJF. He was saying stuff that's beyond the pale, ghastly stuff. It was up to Jeff Jarrett to sort of be the better man in his babyface role, and he's instead your last blew everyone on the roster backstage. So what? What are you saying that for?
Are you meant to be a babyface here?
MJF's character is sort of permitted to go there and to be transgressive because it's within the... I don't know what Jeff was thinking. And he himself has admitted that, maybe he took it too far.
His playground is, doesn't it? Your mum's a slag.
Yeah, he blew all of them. So what are you doing that for?
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what Jeff Jarrett does. If this is
There's value in Jarrett still.
Yeah, his final year within AEW. I think there is still a story to tell of I still want one more shot of the world title that they've started to tease there.
They would have. I think
I don't think
they've
it's
missed. I
successful.
think they've missed the boat. That was a potentially great story, and Jeff Jarrett could have been brilliant at it had he not, quite frankly, suffered massive head loss during those exchanges with MGF of the doomed guy not getting it done, but that one great immortal hope spot. But yeah, I think the ship has sailed on that. I think Jarrett, play the hits, be the heel. I think Dustin Rhodes versus MJF was so much better as that sort of venerable old guy fighting MJF, this little snot punk. So I think the ship has sailed, but Jarrett was always a better heel. Such an entertaining guy. I think that is the way to do it. Maybe, this is a wild one, if Ospreay does in fact win it All In, Ospreay versus heel Jarrett in some kind of concession stand brawl, where like everyone that Jarrett's known in his past comes out to try and beat up Ospreay in this overbooked schmoz. I'm up for that. On the last story, switching gears here, Dakota Kai is up for wrestling, but isn't apparently getting the opportunities. She took to X overnight to say that she misses wrestling, and then underneath, salute emoji, not injured BTW. It's not really difficult to read between the lines here, because between line 1 and line 2 is, I'm frustrated, I want to be wrestling, I'm not, it's a creative decision, over my head, I'm not injured, I'm good to go, I want to go, it's simply not happening for me. I've got a degree of sympathy with Dakota Kai. In fact, I've got a degree of sympathy with so many wrestlers who are underutilized right now, because there is simply too much talent for two majors. And you know, I'm a fan of a lot of talent in TNA, but let's face it, it's a place where you go to get no buzz whatsoever unless something goes awry, as we saw at Rebellion in that Ultimate X match. Dakota Kai for me has, if I'm a booker, right, I kind of sympathize. I can't believe I'm saying this, man. No, I almost sympathize with Paul Levesque, because you've got someone like Dakota Kai who's incredibly charming, whose best matches are incredible, but at the same time has kind of been plagued by injury a lot. Had a stable, terribly booked, but you know, they were focused upon in Damage Couture, who didn't necessarily get over. You know, it's kind of up to you at a certain point to maximize your minutes, as Jim Ross would say. So do you go with Dakota Kai, who's got kind of not the best injury record and not the best record of really connecting with the audience, or do you go to that warehouse that is the Performance Center and all that production line of talent in that women's division? But at the same time, if Dakota Kai leaves WWE, she's just kissing the mainstream career goodbye. Moral of the story, I wish there was a third major. Not going to happen, but what do you think of all this?
Yeah, I love Dakota Kai. I don't think there's anyone I've ever heard have a bad word, aside from in kayfabe, have a bad word to say about Dakota Kai.
Which makes what I've just said me feel even more guilty.
No, but I think there is elements of truth to it. Like you say, it's not exactly like, oh no, why is Dakota Kai not getting booked, when all they've got is Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky just absolutely killing it.
Vaca, Perez.
You know, the talent coming through from NXT, like you say, as well. So there's an element of that. There's maybe hope that they are just keeping Dakota Kai on the back burner to do some big thing once Asuka and Kairi Sane are ready to come back, and they don't want to kind of distract from the amazing singles stuff that Io Sky's doing right now. Nevertheless, like, it's astonishing that Dakota Kai hasn't done more and won more in WWE for me. I hope this is the catalyst for them realizing, she's kind of pissed off. I think she last appeared in like March. She was like mid-March on TV, end of March on Main Event was her last actual match. Missed all of WrestleMania, basically, WrestleMania season. And following that, you know, you thought maybe she could be one of the big things of like, right, okay, post-WrestleMania, new star, who's getting a bit of a push.
Who wants it?
Exactly. So I hope Dakota Kai going forward gets that attention that she so rightly deserves. But yeah, it is tinged with that fact of, at the end of the day, there are question marks over her injury record, but when she's in ring, there's no questions about that whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is that how many truly ultra-heated Dakota Kai matches have you watched over the last however many years? Like, maybe that's a failure of the booking. Like, I've been highly critical of Paul Levesque's booking in the women's division in particular. So, you know, it is column A, column B is a situation, but it's one of those, like, where, like, in years gone by, you used to go, right, okay, well, not working out for me in WWE, I'll try and leave voluntarily. This is before AEW got too stacked, like, before AEW existed, like, you could sort of get a little run somewhere else and try and build your momentum. Everything is so dominated by this AEW versus WWE war that it's completely overtaken everyone's thoughts. And yes, other companies have their audiences, but in terms of conversation and discourse, like, I know this is a tangent and we'll wrap up imminently, but I feel sorry for Mike Santana. like unbelievable work transforming his personal life, his physique, and he's decided to go out, bet on himself, go to TNA. Like, if you actually watch the work, he's done really well. How many people are noticing? It's just like AEW has solved a lot of pro wrestling's problems, and I'll be eternally grateful. But there's created some of their own, quite frankly.
Especially with women's mid-card titles, and not to just dismiss her and say, oh, the best she could do is a women's mid-card title, but come on. Like, she's got to win one of those at least before she departs WWE, if that's the plan going forward. But I hope she's not going anywhere. I hope she's sticking around, and I hope she gets the push that she deserves. But let us know your thoughts on Dakota Kai and everything we've discussed in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You can follow us both on X. You can follow him at @MCidrick. Follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE, and make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. In the meantime, why not check out this video right here? We'll see you soon.